CRD 4.3. You've learned how to reduce fractions with polynomials. You've learned how to add and subtract fractions with polynomials. Now we're going to learn how to multiply and divide fractions with polynomials. So we're going to start with what we know. We're going to start with what we learned in elementary school and in JA. So this first question is from elementary school, I'd say. You have a fraction multiplied with another fraction. If you're going to multiply two fractions together, you can multiply the numerators and get 6. You can multiply the denominators and get 35. And then you check for, can I reduce any more? And you can't. So 6/35 is my final answer. The second one, I can multiply the top. This one's a little bit more complicated because it has x's in it, and you did that in JA. So if you multiply the numerator here, you have 3x times 2, and you get 6x. If you multiply the denominator here, you get 105x, but I know how to do that question because I practiced before I did this video. 7 times 15 might cause you some pause. You either will have to grab your calculator or you'll have to do multiplication by hand, or you'll just have to think for a little while to get that answer. All okay, but if you're going to be super fast, I have a faster way. When I look at this, I now have to reduce it. X and x can cancel, and 6 and 105 actually have a common factor of 3. So if you divide 3 out, you'll get 6 divided by 3 is 2, 105 divided by 3 is 35, and that's my final answer. That's an absolutely okay way to do it, but I do think there's a better way. And you learned this in JA. You learned to prime factor everything. So 3 can't be factored any further, x can't be factored any further, 7 can't be factored any further, 2 can't be factored any further, 15 can though. So I write 15 as 3 times 5 times x. Now, I'm going to cancel anything on the top and on the bottom that's the same. It's basically the common factors. So 3 and 3 are on the top and on the bottom, and they can cancel. The x and the x, top and bottom, and they can cancel. Then that leaves me with just 2 on top, and on the bottom I have a 7 times 5, 35. So it's a much easier way to break everything down, prime factorize, look for common factors, cancel, then multiply. Okay, now if you're doing division, and you're using the prime factorizing rule, you have to remember just one more step. Your first fraction is exactly the same, but your second fraction, you're going to turn it to multiplication, and the second fraction becomes the reciprocal. Now it's the same problem I had before. And the first fraction I can't really do anything with, but the second fraction I can change into 2 times 7. And on the bottom, 5 times x. Now, look for the common factors and cancel. 7 and 7 will cancel. 5 and 5 will cancel. X and one of the x squareds will cancel. So that leaves me with a final answer of 2x over 5. And that's my final answer. Okay, that should be review from the past. Now we're going to multiply with polynomials. Look at how much more complicated this looks. It is more complicated, but once you get the general gist of it, as long as your factoring is strong, it's not so hard. Step 1, factor all parts of the fraction. Don't forget to use GCF, use dots, use perfect square trinomial, use general factoring, use the British method. Okay, so I'm going to look at this. 2x plus 6. If I factor out a GCF, I'll have 2 times x plus 3. On the bottom, if I factor that, that's a dots. So I do x minus 2, x plus 2. Okay. The top here, I have to think about. Looks like it falls into the general factoring category. X plus 2, x plus 1. That would give me that. If I factor the bottom here, again, it's going to be a GCF. So I'll start with 5x on the outside, and on the inside I'll have x plus 3. Okay, step 1, check. I factored everything. It's just like prime factorization, right? So now step 2, look for common factors to cancel. All right, so I see x plus 3 here, an x plus 3 here, and those cancel. I see an x plus 2 here and an x plus 2 here, and that can cancel. Only top to bottom. It can be in the same fraction, but it has to be on the top and on the bottom. Okay, I think that's all I can do. So I'm going to multiply what's remaining. That would have been step 3, which it didn't say, but now I'm going to multiply the remaining top. 2 times x plus 1 over 5x times x minus 2. It's tempting to cancel some of this stuff, but you can't because 2 has to find another 2, x has to find another single x plus 1 is a whole unit, and there's no other x plus 1. So that's going to be my final answer. Okay, if I were going to divide, it's going to be similar, but a lot more steps. So basically I have one fraction divided by another fraction. So rewrite as a division problem. So the first thing I'll do is times 10 over 2xy plus 3y. Check. Step 2, turn the division problem into a multiplication problem. 1 over 4x squared minus 9 times 2xy plus 3y over 10. Done. 3, factor all parts. 1 over, this is a dot, so I have 2x minus 3, 2x plus 3. Here I have a GCF. It's a y, which leaves me with 2x plus 3. And here I have a 2 times 5. Okay? Step 4, cancel all common factors. So it looks like 2x plus 3 is the only common factor I have. Multiply my numerators, I get y. Multiply my denominators, I get 10 times x minus 3. You can leave it factored like this. You don't always have to multiply it all the way back in. You can leave it like this. So division's really not a whole lot more than multiplication is. Okay, now number 31 in the book is multiplying binomials with polynomial fractions. So it's kind of combining lots of different things together. When you see two binomials next to each other, don't forget to FOIL. Also, don't forget to reduce your answer. So if I do my F, I'll get x times x is x squared. If I do my outers, I'll get x times negative 10 over x. So remember, the x's cancel, and basically I just get negative 10 here. The inners, I have negative 3 over x times x over 1. I get negative 3. And my last term is negative times negative, so positive 30 over x squared. Okay, so there's my FOIL. Now I'm going to write my answer. X squared minus, these are cut like terms, 13 plus 30 over x squared. And I'm done. Complicated, but not impossible. You definitely can do it. So 34 to 44 have some more complicated problems. They have lots of combinations of adding, subtracting, and reducing, all of those good things. So let's do one of them together. This is number 42. So I see a subtraction problem and a division problem. Well, I'm going to have to deal with the numerator and make it one thing first, and the denominator and make it one thing first, and then divide it. So let's make this all have denominators of 1. And then let's make my denominator have denominators of 1. Now I'm going to need to make a common denominator for the top and a common denominator for the bottom. In this case, I think x is going to work. So on the top, I'm going to have x squared over x because I'm multiplying by x and x. Here I'm going to have x over x, and here I'm going to keep that as is. So my numerator becomes x squared minus x minus 6 over x. My denominator becomes, so first I'm going to do multiply by x and x. I have x over x minus 3 over x. So I end up getting x minus 3 over x. Okay, now extend the page. And now I have this divided by this. So I'm going to write x squared minus x minus 6 over x. And I'm going to jump to the multiplication part. Because it's division, I have to flip this fraction and make it its reciprocal. Now I'm going to factor. That's all good, but oops, sorry, that's pretty messy. But now I'm going to factor that top one. Up here, I'm going to have x, and I need to do that. It's going to be 3 and 2, and it's going to be a negative 3 and a positive 2. And now I look for canceling, so this cancels, and this cancels, and this cancels, and this cancels, and what do I get? X plus 2. So it's amazing how simple the answer is after all that work. So you'll have a chance to have some fun and do some extra complicated math problems that involve all the operations in the reducing, and those will be on questions 34 to 44. After that, I do want you to practice in the monster packet to make sure you've solidified these skills before moving forward. Best of luck.